Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monolife Laboratory. My name is Dr. Elizabeth Wanick, and I am President and Medical Director of Monolife Laboratory. I have an undergraduate degree in chemistry and training as a general and pediatric surgeon. In addition, I have training in functional medicine and then now practice what I call foundational medicine for the last over 10 years. I have 41 years of experience in medical practice and 20 of these years with accumulated knowledge and experience with Wujinsan and Monolife products. And today we're going to discuss with you the benefits of our fulvic isolate product called Wujinsan. And I'm joined today by Dr. Robert Faust, who is Professor Emeritus and a world's expert on humic and fulvic substances. Welcome, Dr. Faust. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to understand the value of the soil to human life, to plant life, and to animal life as well?
Yeah, well, it started out back in the day when I was studying agriculture, and then I took over the family farm, and I was introduced by my neighbors who were Amish and Mennonites to biodynamic farming and organic farming, which is something you don't learn in college. I wanted to, but that's not that's not a subject. It is now. There's some places you can go to study biodynamics and agroecology, but back in the 60s, no. It was still pretty much agricultural colleges, as now, are supported by the pharmaceutical and petrochemical input industry. And every solution has got a chemistry solution, a rescue chemistry. Whereas biodynamics is trying to understand nature. These are the two big conflicting theories of agriculture: the humus theory of plant nutrition and the chemical or hydroponic theory of plant nutrition. And that started back after World War I, when they had excess production of nitrates from building explosive devices. And so they're trying to push these nitrates into agriculture. So for centuries before that, the theory was the humus theory of plant nutrition, is that it's indirect, the bacteria and microbial activity in the soil working on organic matter, and that would be applied manures, composts, or plow down green manure crops, crop residue, etc. That feed the soil. So you're feeding the soil to feed the plant, whereas in the chemical, let's say, hydroponic theory, you're feeding the plant directly with chemical salts. So when you feed the plant directly with chemical salts, the plant is not getting, and this is not just plants, this is about cells, this is about animals, this is all the way up the food chain. So people think, well, plant cells, animal cells, genes. Yeah, there's one set of genes, and we all share those genes. Okay. And what I ran into in my actual experiences of farming, when I was working on my master's degree in agronomy and plant science on my own family farm, and my neighbors were showing me some of the things they do, and those things worked, and you couldn't deny it. And that was the beginning of my introduction to what we call now biostimulants. Things like kelp extracts, composts, amino acids, things we didn't even really have a name for. But my neighbors, who were pretty much some of the best, known to be some of the best farmers in the country, you couldn't argue with results. So I started working with biodynamics and making biodynamic compost, and we didn't know much about it at the time. And then over the years, I realized that there's something to humus. What is this humus? It's magic. But no, it's not magic. It's science. So over the years, we discovered that the importance and the crucial importance of humus. And then I learned about humic acids. Okay, that's the basic compounds, or a large group of 800 different compounds called humic acids with an S, not humic acid. There is humic acid. There's also fulvic, ulvic, olmic. These are fractions of humus. They're not individual compounds. So what we found in my research was without humic substances, plants are susceptible to diseases in insects. And that's not just a theory, that's an observation that I made early on, where I did comparison test plots. And so this is when I was introduced to so-called humates, which are nature's compost, you might say. It's a mined deposit of ancient organic matter. It's a concentrated form of humic acids, but so is biodynamic compost. So these humic substances are what the key to all this. So we didn't know it at the time because we didn't have molecular genetics. We didn't have molecular biology. We didn't understand DNA. We didn't understand genetic pathways or molecular pathways and activation of resistance. That didn't exist. Then over the years of studying this subject and working with researchers around the world, finally, we get some answers. Okay, why does the use of humic substances, whether they're composts or biodynamic compost, that is, not all compost, or these so-called humic substances, of which kelp is also contains humic substances. So why, when we use those products right to the row, you don't see any plant diseases or insect damage is way reduced dramatically? Well, it's because there's substances within these so-called humic substances, humic acids, fulvic acid, that are that activate pathways within the cell nucleus, that turn on, is the only way I can say it, turn on or activate natural resistance to diseases, and it gives the plants a way of resisting insects, probably humans, probably animals too, but definitely activates insulin-like pathways, plant resistance to abiotic stress and diseases. There are specific pathways that were activated. And that's based on actual lab research that was done on our fulvic acid product, which we call full humic or full power or Wujinsan. They're the different forms. And actual research that was done in the lab that defined the pathways that were activated. So we know in humans and animals, there's insulin-like pathways that are activated. In plants, there are plant growth regulator or plant biostimulant pathways activated, and resistance pathways across the board. So we know that in humus farming, the humus theory of plant diseases, of nutrition, it's more than nutrients. It's more than NPK. That's mineral nutrition. Plants need mineral nutrition, but they need more. They would need way more because they're converting sunlight into sugars. And it's done in the cell, and the cell has to have complete nutrition, trace elements, major nutrients, and humic substances. So we know that what activates pathways are polyphenols, and that within humic acid, there's 800 different compounds. And a group of those compounds, aromatics, are what has the biological effects. So now we know how to test these substances, and we know how to recognize the chemistry that provides those effects. And so we all heard of polyphenols and what you find in grape skins and wine and fruit juices, and these are antioxidants. but way more than that. That's simplistic. So back to the chemical theory, which is the profitable one for the petrochemical industry. You're just providing nutrients. You don't even think about the organic matter or
And
substances.
and these
You know,
nutrients specifically are the salts, correct?
salts. It's strictly what we call salt fertilizers.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the system called use of salt fertilizers. These are chemical salts.
Right.
Whereas in humic theory of plant nutrition, it's a breakdown, it's a recycling, it's the carbon cycle by microbes, soil food web that release nutrients from previous living plant remains.
Right.
And not necessarily in a salt form. It can be ion exchange with the cations. So what ends up happening is the salt fertilizer technique will grow a plant, absolutely grow a plant, but it lacks resistance to diseases and insects. It doesn't have the flavor or the nutritional qualities of an organic or biodynamic. The cost of production are higher because you're buying all these salt fertilizers. These things have all been proven over the years. So the point of it is, if you're going to be on a salt fertilizer based nutritional program, which is conventional agriculture, you're going to have to use rescue chemistry. So that's where the whole idea of rescue chemistry comes in. We're feeding plants chemical salts. They're missing the substances they need, the organic substances, the species of carbon. We're not talking NPK or minerals or salts. We're talking organic compounds like polyphenols, aromatics, quinones. And most people are not familiar with these, but the cells need these, and the cells in the plants produce their own resistance to diseases and insects. If they didn't, they wouldn't have evolved on the planet Earth. They wouldn't be with us today because for millions upon millions of years, they had this, nobody's rescuing them with chemistry. Okay.
Right.
So nowadays it's salt fertilizers and rescue chemistry.
Right, and I think that's translated into understanding of what the human body should be given to, because that's how it has been translated, that the humans need the minerals too. But from what you said, the biological activity is from the organic matter, which is made of carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, not the salts. It's the organic matter and the carbon cycle that is important for the plant, the animals that eat the plant, which includes the human beings. We need those carbon sources, and that has the biological activity. It's not the minerals.
That's right. The minerals are just like a catalyst or something necessary in relatively small amounts. And in fact, some of the largest amounts of salts added are nitrogen salts, like ammonium nitrate, ammonium sulfate. And the soil food web can fix nitrogen from the air. The air is loaded with nitrogen, and legumes fix nitrogen from the air, and that's what they use for their plant growth. So if you use a cover crop, a winter crop of a winter legume, it's fixing nitrogen, then you plant corn or a crop that requires high levels of nitrogen. That's how the cycle works, not dumping ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, which eventually pollutes the groundwater, pollutes your body, and then trying to play catch up with salt fertilizers.
Right.
And trying and getting everything out of balance.
Right, and that's what I hear you saying. That's unsustainable. It's not sustainable agriculture, and it's not sustainable for the human being either. A human being can live with mineral supplements, but their life isn't sustained in a resilient and strong way if there isn't adequate amounts of the organic acids, which we're going to touch bases on in this presentation, the human being needs the organic substances to be resilient and to be protected from environmental influences that have negative effects.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it's just like how, let's say there's a group of people or a family, and one or two of those people pick up an infectious disease, and the rest of them don't. What's going on? And again, it's the whole immune system, which is cellular in basis. We know that the T helper cell memory uh, can go to work, and if there's an invasion of viruses, some of the common diseases we have today, we have a mechanism to deal with that, but only if there's sufficient biochemistry or organic compounds present to allow that to happen.
Right.
And that's why we're so sick. That's why the populations, the inflammation, and yet if we go back to ancient medical practice, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, they all were using a form of humic substance as a key tonic, you might say.
Right. Yeah, we can even see that in the Inouye population in Alaska. There's geographical and historical information that the Inouye use that extensively in their medical practices.
Yeah, I think just about every ancient civilization did, in some form or another, use humic substances, and we know it goes back to ancient Egypt. We know that they would extract fulvic acid, which is gold in color, and they saw it as a form of alchemy, where you could get a rich golden liquid, which to them was gold, out of the black waters of the Nile.
Right.
In fact, Wu Jinsan means black gold medicine in Chinese, because it's extracted from something black, and it comes out gold.
Right.
And if it's not gold, you don't have it. There's something about that. Is it actually gold, or is it monoatomic elements?
Right.
But the color is related to tannins, which are a part of one of the organic compounds that is recycled when plants decompose and form humic substances. And the valuable humic substances is gold, not black.
Right. Right. And if it's anything other than gold in color, it by definition isn't fulvic acid. And we talked about this in a previous presentation, but fulvic substances, fulvic acids, the fulvic fraction is by definition also acidic, which means it has a pH of less than 7. And this is a picture of our Wujinsan product, which is, as you can see, it's clear or brassy in color, and it has a pH of 4 that doesn't change over time. It's a very stable substance that contains all the biological activity of sustaining and supporting the organic needs of a human body. So if something you're taking isn't acidic and it's not golden in color or brassy in color, it's not fulvic acid. This is not fulvic acid. This black stuff is not fulvic acid. This brown stuff is not fulvic acid. And this yellow stuff with a bunch of sediment is a salt of fulvic acid, because it's gone through a chemical process that precipitates the salts out of solution and takes them out of their biochemical form. And Dr. Faust, you were telling me that these salts, the sediment in the bottom of this glass, are actually iron salts.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're extracting so-called humic substances or humic acids from coal-like materials, lignite, leonardite. These are oxidized lignite, a whole range of things. You don't know what they're using. But those particular materials, which are ancient compressed uh, remains of organic matter, and sometimes it's actually burnt, more like a biochar, is very high in iron because a lot of those deposits were inundated by volcanic ash. They're between layers of ash and organic matter that was washed into low spots and then decomposed over either millions of years, and it overlies coal. So it's very, very high in iron. So that iron is going to precipitate. Now, having a high level of iron is not a good thing because it tends to react and tie up what you do need, like zinc, for instance. So that's why we see so much zinc deficiencies in the US. And without zinc, you lack resistance against some of our most common viral plagues that we have today. And if you had so-called plague, which we are in the middle of right now, used to be defined as a plague, and you went to an Ayurvedic doctor in India thousands of years ago, they would have recommended Shilajit, which is a natural concentrated form of fulvic acid and other things.
Although very crude, a very crude form.
Very, very crude.
Because it's very waxy. It's got a lot of contamination in it. But
so
it
in
is
modern
China,
they're not going to recommend that in modern day China.
Right.
In modern day China, they produce the fulvic acid the way we do. And in fact, a lot of the technique that we use is derived from ancient technique in China. So that's a crude source of humic substances. So over the years, we've managed to define this, and mostly in Asia and Asiatic countries, fulvic acid is well defined and purified, and it's called Wujinsan or Wujin, which means golden medicine. So there's the color that's golden medicine.
Right.
And whether that's actual gold, as the Egyptians thought it was, or is it polyphenols and anti-inflammatory? We know it's hundreds of compounds. There's no one chemical called fulvic acid. It's a fraction.
Right. And we'll go into that shortly. But the other thing that I just simply tell people is that mineral salts are corrosive. Iron salts are corrosive. That's iron oxide is rust. So when you're taking in mineral salts, basically there is corrosion literally within the cells of your body. And this corrosion binds up the very machinery that your cells need to keep everything working. So mineral salts coming in at a higher pH are not the way the cells require the minerals to be delivered. Yes, we need minerals, but not in a salt form. And we'll talk about that a little bit, and that the minerals come into us through our food, which has taken the minerals and converted them into an organic form bound to carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, which is a form that we use them without them being in the form of a salt. So anything that is an alkaline pH, that is black, that is gray, that is black brown, that is red, anything that is not clear yellow or clear brassy color, no matter how the product is labeled, if it's an alkaline pH and it's not yellow, it's not fulvic acid. And maybe, you know, I've thought about this question a lot. Is it because that during World War II or World War I, when we had all these nitrates left over, that it just became told, the story became that we need all these minerals. how did we lose our way from the way nature has always grown things to where we are micromanaging things, and separating ourselves from the very nature of what we are, and not sustaining and supporting the function of our body, ourselves, the way nature intended.